All right, 6 o'clock, we'll call the meeting to order. If Eric, mute button's right up by your escape key there. We'll call the meeting to order with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you everybody for joining us for the August 5th, 2024 Credit River City Council meeting. We will begin with approving or amending the agenda. Is there any changes to the agenda anybody'd like to make, or I would take a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you,
Second.
Jay. All right, a motion by Jay, second by Leroy. Motion is second to approve the agenda as noted. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. No sheriff's deputy tonight, so we'll skip over sheriff's report and move on to consent agenda. Those items on the council agenda which are considered routine or non-controversial are included as part of the consent agenda. Unless a council member specifically requests that an item on the consent agenda be removed and considered separately, items on the consent agenda are considered under one motion, a second, and a vote. Any item removed from consent agenda shall be placed at the end of general business. Tonight, on consent agenda, we have 3.1, adopt a resolution for the Minnesota Government Data Practices Act, a responsible party and policy. 3.2, approve the July 15th, 2024 City Council meeting minutes. Is there anything on consent agenda that somebody'd like to, a council member would like to remove and consider separately?
No.
Otherwise, I would take a motion to approve.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Jay.
I'll second.
Thank you, Abe. I've got a motion and a second to approve consent agenda as written. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Open forum. The public forum is intended to afford the public an opportunity to address concerns to the council. The public forum will be no longer 30 minutes in length, and each presenter will have no more than 5 minutes to speak. Topics of discussion are restricted to local governmental topics rather than private or political agendas. The council may discuss but will not take formal action on public forum presentations. Is there anybody that'd like to speak in open forum? Vern?
Uh-oh.
First, 165th Street East. Looking at the agenda packet, it looked like the trees in Creekwood were going to be addressed, or at least.
Discussed.
But I talked to several people in Creekwood who are concerned about the trees on the west side of the road that are leaning over the road. And, consensus was, if they're gonna be working here, now would be the time to trim them back before they fall over a passing car and kill somebody, which can happen. It's unlikely, but I just wanted to mention it in public forum, so.
Sure.
Anyway, that's what I.
Okay. Thank you, Vern.
Whatever you say.
Perfect. Thank you, Vern. Anybody else for open forum tonight? Hearing none, we will close open forum and move on to presentations. Tonight, presentations, we have Miss Elizabeth Yonklin would like to do a presentation for us on the some park improvements she'd like to talk about. Do me a favor, Elizabeth, turn the microphone on, please. And Eric, you're going to share the presentation.
There we go.
Perfect. Good evening. Go ahead whenever you're ready.
Maybe aim it at this.
Oh, it should be Bluetooth, so it should be. Eric, do me a favor, that dongle on the side there, pull that out and put it back in.
And is the clicker on the side there? There should be an on off switch.
Something just happened.
I trust it to.
Eric, you want to just do it?
Oh, there you go, buddy.
Hello, my name is Brooklyn, and I enjoy the sport of basketball. Tonight, or a couple meetings ago, I spoke at the open forum about improving the basketball courts. Tonight, I will share my research and ideas. The current state of our courts are really bad. There are torn nets. There's a bunch of cracks. The lines are very faded. There are plants growing in the cracks, and they don't have the shooting squares painted onto the backboards. And as you can see in this photo of the basketball hoop, it is angled in, which affects shooting too. Along with that, there are also safety hazards. The pea gravel on the court causes slipping, and the plants in the crack make it hard to play and also cause tripping. And then the poles are too close to the backboard, so when you go into a layup, you run into the pole. This is a picture on the left of a good hoop. It has good sturdy beams holding up the backboard, while ours on the right, it's very thin and flimsy. And on the left, the backboard is 4 feet from the base. The backboard is 4 feet from the baseline. While in this picture of ours, it's not even in front of the baseline, it's behind it, which can make it hard to play on because it's not where it's supposed to be. The distance from the pole to the backboard should be 5 feet for safety. This at ours, it is too close, so when you go into the layup, you can run into it. And then the backboard should be at 6 feet wide and 3.5 feet tall, while ours are all different, so it makes it hard to play on. And then the backboard square should be painted on to help you shoot. The court itself has pea gravel all over it. As you can see on the left, all those little tiny spots, and it makes it hard to dribble and causes lots of slipping. And then on the right, you can see that the lines are very faded and there's cracks going down the court. These are 2 pictures from a prior lake court. It has the hoop that I mentioned earlier that is sturdy and safe. The lines are painted on well, and it's sealed, so it's smooth, so when you fall, you don't scrape your knees as much. And then they also included at the half court line, 4 square courts for more enjoyment. So with the safety hazards and the problems, I'm proposing that the city installs 7 new hoops, they fix the cracks, reseal the courts and stripe them, and add 4 square lines for more enjoyment, and that they fix the pea gravel problem at Creekwood and Country Court. This is the hoop that I researched. It is manufactured by Bison. It is at it's at Prior Lake Courts and Burnsville Courts. It's the National Federation of State High School Sports recommends this hoop for all high school sports and their equipment. Along with this, I know there's a cost, and so the cost for the 7 hoops that'd be $33,950. And then I'm not sure what it would be for sealing and restriping them along with the pea gravel solution. I don't know if there's someone that could come sweep it off like every time somebody mows or like twice a week. And then this is over on the right, the hoop that I researched. It's $4,850 for one. And then I looked at the city budget and it says that there's $8,000 for sealing and restriping, along with $40,000 for the playground equipment. Along with going to other cities' courts and our courts and taking pictures, I did some research online, and these are just some sources that I used. Thank you for your time. Now I can answer any questions.
Perfect. Thank you, Elizabeth. Council members, questions, comments?
Sure.
Et
So
cetera. Go ahead.
you're looking at seven new hoops, correct? Which parts?
All 4.
All 4.
Mhm.
Okay, and so that's not a number.
So there's 9 hoops in all, but 2 of which are shorter ones for little kids that could stay.
Okay,
And then and only one park has only a 1 hoop, so.
okay. I did look after you brought it up at the neighborhood, at the park meeting. And then further discussion, I actually went out and looked at some of these. I also looked at some of the ones in Prior Lake to see if they were different, and I did see a difference. And when you don't go out and play and use them, you don't know it. But once you brought it up and I looked at it, I thought that this is kind of an important thing. And I have a question for the rest of the council, is this considered maintenance or is this considered new equipment, depending on budget and what we have the funds to do it?
Yes and yes. I think you replacing the hoops, that would be capital, strips, sealing and restriping probably maintenance.
I think it would depend on what kind of surface you did.
Yeah, if
Right.
there's an
I mean,
improvement.
if you did
we just asphalt.
surface, like if we just did the fog seal like we normally do.
Right.
Would probably be maintenance.
Yep.
But
What about
I suppose
microsurfacing or planting them?
the microsurface is a rough
Yeah.
texture that probably wouldn't work out well, but I know there's like sport coat coatings and stuff that one could look at.
Lizzie, great job on the presentation. The 7 hoops, is that 33,000 include labor to install, or is that just the equipment? Okay, did you ask how much it would cost to install any of them, or did you just look online at the equipment cost? Okay,
After seeing this presentation, it's kind of obvious that we maybe need some improvement on these. So I think we should probably look at maybe getting some costs for the rest of it and then figure out what a good spec for a court. Did you by chance get any research on a surfacing?
No.
Okay.
Sure.
Great job on it. All that stuff was installed about 18 years ago. So.
by you?
back-
Is that why it tips a little bit at there? Lee?
I think it's probably more than 18 years, don't you think? Some of that stuff's
Probably
probably,
20.
some of that could even be more.
And we did a
Time
couple
flies
of,
faster than you think.
we did a couple of the parks and then next year we did the other ones, but back and just not making an excuse why not to improve it, but back at that time, that was the best we could put in. So that was that, but
Yeah.
no, they are due for an update. And everything on the parks, we need to improve them.
Yeah.
They're being used a lot and. So,
Yeah, Elizabeth, great job. It takes a lot of courage to get up and do that and a lot of research went into it, so I appreciate that. A couple questions I'd have for council and maybe staff is, how much are they being used, right? I know we did have that in the capital project to do the seal on that court, on those courts too, so. Thinking through that, how much use happens, right? Can you do some, the pea gravel on the court is obviously something that, could you just throw some railroad tiles or something, ties on there to keep the pea gravel away,
it's a hazard, that's why we removed.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think part of that pea gravel might be the,
What's going
between
on?
seal coats, what comes loose.
Oh,
from
so
the
it's not
blacktop,
coming from
right?
the equipment.
So we normally do the fog seals when we do the neighborhood that they're around.
Yeah.
When we do the seal coat in the neighborhood, we usually fog seal the court at that time.
Gotcha.
I don't remember the last time that we did some of these.
In Country Court, probably 20 years ago,
Yeah, it was,
the ceiling.
well, I think we sealed it since the park
It's
since
been
then. We haven't done the whole.
sealed
neighborhood.
No, I mean,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
roads.
Right.
Roads.
yeah.
Anyhow, yeah. One thing, once the new hoops go in, you'll be amazed at how many kids are climbing on top of them and trying to bend the rims, because that's why we put the breakaway rims on after they were installed. They just bent the hell out of the rims in the first 2 weeks, so.
Yeah,
With an
Uh,
improvement on it, do you think there's a chance that we could get some organized youth activity? Like some sort of
are you volunteering?
no?
we had, in Creekwood and at Country Court, that's why the little satellite shelters were built, because Prior Lake Soccer came out and wanted to use those two spots. And they needed a place to keep the satellite in, and a couple of the neighbors said they didn't want to look at this green thing, so I built the shelters. And they never put a satellite in, and they never used Creekwood. They used for soccer a little bit, but that was it. So, yeah.
Okay,
How would we prioritize this over? There's been requests for playground equipment too. So
so this is,
it's
we, again, I think yeah, I agree with you, Bill, right? It's, we need to have like a some sort of capital plan or something to, because
right.
how do you figure out when do you know, unless we're just gonna do it all at once.
Well, the other one would be to just say pick a park and do one each year.
We-
To fit it in. and then
Problem is,
do it
we don't
next.
have, right, we don't have the funding for all four parks to put in all new equipment and
Mhm.
replace all the
Right.
basketball hoops. And we
Right.
wouldn't, we'd have to start asking taxpayers for more money for that
If
because,
we were to do it.
yeah,
Right,
We have-
unless it's more,
we have 206,000 in the park fund that fund 202, but that includes some restricted stuff that I don't think we can touch.
I think it's all restricted in that
Uh,
fund.
93 is restricted and then 112.9 was assigned for park improvements. It didn't say restricted, so.
Okay,
But I did some research and it says you need about $1,000 of per kid that would use the park. Assume that for your equipment budget. That's just equipment. That doesn't include the installation. That doesn't include the surface. So this can, I did my own calculation. We need $500,000 to do justice to all four parks. And that doesn't include the basketball courts because I didn't even. look at
right,
those.
the surface, or
That
just-
includes the surface and the park equipment.
okay,
Based on my estimate of how many kids actually use it. And I did a whole analysis on it because when we were at Scottview, you know, there was some ladies that were talking about that. They've been trying to ask for this stuff for a number of years now. And I think we should start doing something. But we're gonna have to ask for more money because we don't have it.
yeah, we have to understand what the needs all are and like put that plan together,
Right.
like, you know, like again, we understand basketball courts and that, and then like make a decision on what kind of equipment one would put in, then you figure out how to stage that out.
Yeah.
And you can add probably $1,200 to $1,500 hoop for the concrete and
The installation.
labor
Yeah.
to install them. So
Yeah.
that's generally what the other ones ran.
Yeah,
It'd definitely be cheaper to do the basketball hoops and the playground equipment. It's incredibly
Yeah.
expensive.
yeah.
One of the
Absolutely.
things too, to just consider is she did bring up some safety issues that are existing, that we should probably think about addressing.
Can we have someone broom the court? Get the pea gravel off? I mean, how many times is that?
We're
Leroy?
we're not brooming them weekly.
Yeah, that would be a bit, but yeah,
Spray the weeds.
but
The weeds,
if we can get the weeds,
some of the weeds have been taken care of and addressed.
yeah. Elizabeth, just a quick question. Did you do any talking to other kids and our families and talk about, you know, hey, if we had upgraded basketball facilities, would they be used or? Did you get that far at all in your research?
I know that Pam and Roman would use them if in their city that in their part of the town, if theirs got redone.
Okay,
And then I know that I and my family, we'd all use it.
sure. Okay,
Yeah.
I think there's a need.
yeah, I think we need to
We need to figure out how to
consider
do it.
what our next steps are gonna be, you know, again, juggling around with, again, the requests for additional equipment. With, you know, requests for basketball, refreshing the basketball courts and stuff, I think we need to understand. What kind of surface we would do, if we're to change the surface or just fog seal what we have and paint on it again. How do we handle the cracks, just normal crack filling again?
There was cracks in the picture of the prior lake.
Yeah.
I mean, that cracks too.
It does, right? And so, you know, like any hard surface, right? The expansion and contraction, it's gonna crack.
Or do we do an overlay on them?
Maybe there's some that are worse than others.
And yeah, I mean, it's,
Right.
it's it's,
That might take care
to
of
go,
dips and things that are in the imperfections in the existing court too.
well, you're gonna get water puddles. on
Yeah,
it, So,
Yeah.
maybe less. I have one other question, which might
Yeah,
be,
Jay.
is there a chance to do kind of a multi-use with the courts themselves, possibly look at like a pickleball net or something? I know that other, that's kind of desired in some places. Is it possible to do something like that and some additional striping? So it could be multi-use.
you're gonna volunteer to go around and set them up every day?
Well, maybe not the net, but maybe paint the lines or, cause
Right.
there's people have portable nets and stuff
Right.
like
Yeah.
that, so, but I think
That would
what we need is,
possibly
we need to
provide for
figure,
more uses of it.
right,
Yeah, there was a
Patrick.
lady requested striping it
for
at
pickleball.
Creekwood, so.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, so action on this, how do we put this together? Do we wanna assign a couple council members to work on some ideas and work with Eric and staff on getting some quotes together?
I volunteer to do some of that.
I'd be happy to as well,
Okay,
unless somebody else wants to.
so we're looking to get some final costs on,
Let's get, well, I think some direction to give the staff to get some final costs.
okay.
Mayor, council, if I could, yes.
Would
So.
you turn your microphone on though?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Hold that button, there you go.
So developing your basketball courts, whatever, even in the best case scenario, even if you had the dollars on hand, there's probably whatever manufacturer you want to pick, you've got a 4 or 6 week lead time just to get a hold of
Yeah.
them. And then to schedule installation for the hoops themselves, much less the resurfacing. In most respects, this is a 2025 project. And so if that's the case, it gives you the opportunity to take a little bit more of a comprehensive approach instead of, I'm not saying you don't want to, but that's probably the realistic timeline, even from a constructability standpoint. It isn't this year. There are firms, the greatest one I know is, I shouldn't say great, but the greatest name was Sir Lines-A-Lot. You've probably
Oh, yeah.
heard of them, and they could probably come out and give you a quote just to
Striping.
stripe it for this year. And that it's something, it's helpful. It's not perfect, but it's something that's probably affordable in your budget this year. So between now and next construction season, I think you could develop an attack of all these, and in the meantime, let's stripe it and see what happens. It's a concept.
Changing that stuff too, probably.
I mean, maybe do the nets, right? You know. But it is truly a 2025 project, even if you have the dollars, just
Yeah.
the timeline of that stuff it's August.
Yeah. Did we have cloth nets up there? Or chains?
No,
Instead of cloth
they're
nets?
a nylon.
Should we go with barbed wire?
They're really tough.
But we can do that. We could get the.
I have a
quote
chain
for
in my
striping.
house because they all rust.
Cause they
right?
get the weather and.
Well, if
I know
get
you
the
got
net,
some
I'll
liability,
volunteer to
though,
go
if
change
it's
I'll change the net.
Oh, yeah, that's easy.
Hudson St. Croix is who we've
Yeah.
been using and
Yeah.
they're very good. And
Right.
Yeah.
It's affordable and
Yeah.
it makes a difference.
So,
Okay. Well, thank you. Appreciate the priming the discussion for us and we'll get some action on this and let you know where we run to. Thank you. Good job.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Eric, if you want to unshare your screen when you get a chance. All right, moving away from presentations, no public hearings tonight, so moving to general business and 7.1 is the Yellowstone and Credit River final plat, and we're going to pass this over to Emily from MSA, standing in for Claire tonight.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. So unfortunately not talking about any fun basketball hoops or anything, but I'll be covering the final plat for Yellowstone of Credit River. The site is located north of Territory, southeast of Terra Farm, and west of Ranch of Credit River. So this is just to say that staff has reviewed the final plat that came in to verify its alignment with the preliminary plat, which was approved by the city council in March with conditions. It consists of 13 home sites that are served by well and septic, all of which were approved by the Scott County Environmental Services, and that letter is included in your packet. All 13 lots meet the minimum lot size and lot frontage requirements for the rural residential district. And then this is just the first 13 proposed parcels out of a future build out of 79. Which will likely come forward to the city for future phases. We haven't received anything yet, obviously. Couple other things, we've been collaborating with the applicant's attorney and the city attorney for the development agreement, which will appear in an upcoming city council meeting, hopefully in the next 1 or 2 meetings. And then planning staff recommends approval of the final plat with the conditions outlined in the resolution. I can walk through those if you want. But otherwise, it mainly just references the completion of the development agreement and then any remaining changes from the engineer's memo, but it won't change the outcome of the plat design or any of the lot sizes or anything.
Do
So-
you mind going through those?
Yeah, let me switch tabs.
Thank you.
Do you just want me to read them down?
I'm reading the correct thing here.
Okay. So from the resolution, number 1, the findings set forth above are incorporated into this resolution as those set forth in full. Number 2, the mayor and the city clerk are not authorized to execute and release the final plat for recording until the final conditions are satisfied. So A through F. A is all comments contained within this memo from the city engineer and city planner dated July 31st, 2024, referred to as the staff memo quote, incorporated herein, have been addressed by the developer to the satisfaction of the city engineer and city planner. B, developer has satisfied the requirements of the plat opinion to be issued by the city attorney. C, a development agreement has been entered into between the city and the developer. D, the developer has paid the city the park dedication fee required by the development agreement. E, updated Stonebrook engineering plans address the comments of the staff letter and the conditions of this resolution are provided for review and approval in writing by the city engineer and city planner. Following approval by the city engineer and city planner, these plans shall collectively be known as the quote approved construction plans. And F, financial security in a form required by the city code and approved by the city attorney, and in an amount approved by the city engineer must be provided by the developer. The developer's agreement shall specify the amount of the financial security. Let's see. There are 15 more.
Oh, that's
I can't keep going, but yeah, most of it is just the development agreement.
Okay. Thank you, Emily. Any other staff comments? No. Council members, comments, questions?
Does
Margaret?
this impact, so we have lots of outlots now. The original plan was all of this stuff was gonna be developed and we had open space and we had that path that we talked about and all that. None of that is negatively impacted by approving this today. Correct?
Yeah, you're correct.
Are they still on the hook to, I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
Go ahead.
Are they still on the hook to do those things in these outlots? Or could they walk away after they do phase 1, the developer? And does that negatively impact the future if this land gets developed by somebody else? I mean, is it developable?
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Marker. Any future phases of development would have to comply with the conditions of the preliminary plat.
Okay,
So all of those are intact.
okay,
If anyone wanted to apply for some different type of development or take a different course, they'd have to come back to you with a new preliminary plat, whole new approach. Otherwise, this is just phase 1 in a build out that should take several phases, which is a fairly customary approach.
all right, thank you.
If I might, we had, when territory developed, they were gonna develop the north side first. Well, then, I don't remember, the developer moved in and they bought all the lots on the south side, so they changed their phases back and
Mhm.
forth. And it all turned out.
Yeah.
Well, even recently, you look at how Terra Farms developed.
Yeah.
Right, so they started with phase 1 and then immediately wanted to sell a couple of different ones and they were on phase 3. when we're still doing phase two, you know. When they haven't done four yet, right?
Yeah.
So,
One other question, does this impact the Dakota? Wasn't there a road that we were going to surface? Does that impact anything? Are we
it
still?
doesn't connect yet.
It doesn't connect yet, so,
We're gonna surface
No.
all of them now.
oh, surface all of them, okay,
Mhm.
not
So
wait.
they're gonna come in from 210th.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was,
Yep. Yeah, this one, if you look at it, it accesses all from 210th. It doesn't, the road doesn't go around and make the connection yet.
Okay,
Case could be made either way, I suppose. Cause now you end up with a couple really long cul-de-sacs and not without connectivity. Okay,
couple questions.
Okay.
The planning commission, have they looked at this and they just did the preliminary and final comes in, they don't look at the final? Okay, couple questions, for lot one, looks like there's a drainage easement on that. Is there enough space for? When I look at that, I'm just trying to get an understanding of that specific lot. I don't know if Shane can speak to that, or if I'm looking at that incorrectly.
Lot one.
Lot two.
Just,
Just like
lot
that.
one is, looks like it's probably just a wetland.
Hey, Jen, I'm with the design team for this.
Here, hold on a second.
Okay, answer any questions you have.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm Blake Connor. I'm with Stonebrook Engineering. I'm part of the design team for this, so I can try to assist with
Perfect, yeah,
whatever
so
questions.
on lot one, looks like there's a wetland and then. Of course, my eyes are not seeing what that is. Just a second ago.
Yep, so there's a wetland on the south side of that lot it does have a drainage and utility easement coming out of the northeast side of that wetland.
Okay,
It's considered a sloped wetland, so it's got about 8 feet of elevation change. That basically means that it's considered dry all throughout the year. If water does come overflowing out of there through the marsh, then it would be channeled into our ditch system and then treated later in a filtration system.
okay, all right, so from a septic perspective and well, there's plenty of space on that.
Yep.
Okay. The other thing, I was out there looking at 210th, and it looks to me like that someone's got a fence that's gonna be impacted by that, so I'm not sure if they've been communicated with or not, but that looks like that road cannot get past that fence very well, or if it's gonna be
are you
right.
talking about the one that you can't keep going straight? Cause
You
there's
keep
one,
going straight,
I think
yeah.
that actually
That's just to keep it.
the Yellowstone property there. I think that was put up. You're talking not the one, or is it on?
So if I'm going to 10th and I hit
Mhm.
the
End of
the end,
There's a fence right across.
right,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
That was barricaded at one time.
okay,
Keep
all right, so
poor-
that's,
Yeah.
Keep
now that
people
you say,
driving out there.
okay, now that you say that, that makes sense, it's
Yeah.
not the current property.
Yeah.
Okay, all right,
The cyclone fence
Did the,
on the south
is
side.
there still,
That's on that gentleman's
is there
property.
still
Okay.
a bunch of junk in front of the fence?
a little bit.
Trees and stuff.
Yeah, cause I know one of the property owners had stored a bunch of landscaping materials there at one time and I'd asked him to remove that.
That's our beer guy.
That's my only questions.
Okay. Council members, any other questions, comments?
No.
Okay, if nobody has any other comments, I would entertain a motion to approve the final plat for Yellowstone.
I'll make.
You're all second yours.
No, go ahead.
All right,
Right.
make the motion.
Jay makes a motion. Leroy, you want a second?
Sure.
And I think there's a resolution for this in here, but
Your Honor, if we could have the motion reference the resolution and its conditions.
yeah,
All right.
I don't have a resolution
have it.
number on here. We'll have to add the resolution number later. So your motion is to approve a resolution approving the final plat for development known as Yellowstone at Credit River. And the resolution will be number 2024 and we'll add the proper sequence in there.
Very good.
So you're still okay with
Yes,
that motion?
that's my motion.
Leroy, you still okay with the second?
Yes, I am.
All right, so I've got a motion and a second to approve the resolution approving the final plat for the development known as Yellowstone at Credit River. All in favor, say aye.
I
Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Thank you, Emily. All right, next up on the agenda, 7.2, consider tree removal and trimming in parks and right-of-way areas. Administrator Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, council members, at the, was it last week's, meeting in the park, it was noted to, those who attended, including myself, I think, yeah, and about the condition of the ash trees and what the city could potentially, remove some of those. And, so the next, I think, couple days later, I met with, Randy Collins. And we took a walk and he gave us a quote of $6,000 to remove the 11 ash and clean up the 2 box elders that are one, I believe, is on the ground, and some other cleanup with those. Stump grinding would be additional $1,300. So that total price would be $7,300. We'd probably have some future costs associated with cleaning up the stump remnants, but that should be pretty minimal. Second to that, Councilmember Schomer noted that there were 3 dead ash on Sewell Circle and some overhead trimming needs to be done on Dakota Avenue. So talking also to Collins, he gave us some estimates on that. The trees in the right of way, I'm sorry, something cut off here, I'm sorry. Remove the ash on Sewell was approximately $1,050 and trim the trees on Dakota about $6,000. So you add the 2 project totals, you're at $14,350. Your funding for the right of way removals is available. You have $20,000 in that fund initially. I'll spare you the analysis of the account, but there's about $9,000 remaining in that public works fund. But your park trees account remains only $1,500. So you need to identify a different funding source. You do have $20,000 in your park budget for, you were going to do a park study, a trail study. If you wanted to reallocate some of those dollars, that's a possibility. Otherwise, you'd have to come up with a different funding source for that. So that's the long and short.
Thank you, Eric. Council members, questions, comments, Stromer.
On Dakota, the entire road, Dakota Avenue, is about a quarter of a mile long, and
It's a gravel road.
gravel road, but driving down it in a pickup in another month, the branches will be hitting the pickup. So it needs 6,000 to do a quarter of a mile, both sides all the way down. I think is very reasonable. Right. And we haven't done it in probably 14 years is the last time we were out there trimming out. So.
Normally the school buses let us know
When
that's a problem.
and they will,
And that's coming up soon.
yeah.
What about the branches overhanging, what we heard tonight, overhanging in
On Creekwood
on
Road.
Creekwood Road?
There's what's in there, Vern, probably half a dozen dead
Well, they're not even dead. They're
dead
just
elm
hanging.
and some other
they're-
stuff hanging, but yeah.
The trees in that area have grown out over the
Right.
road and they're leaning over the road. They're, healthy trees at this point.
If they're healthy though,
Um,
do you take them
They're
down?
box elder.
Trim.
You just trim
Well,
them?
you can't really, because it's, the full trunk is up and over
yeah.
the road.
Okay.
Most of them are box elder. I just roughly, once they're in there doing it, probably look at another 2,000 or 3,000 for them to trim the west side of that road out. Pretty good, so.
It would be the time if they're doing all of the trees in the park.
Yeah, if they're gonna be, they're gonna be
Mobilization.
there.
I mean, the thing with box elders is they just keep growing until they break.
Mhm.
Are there any dead trees in the other parks too, or we're just taking care of one park?
No, the other parks.
Have
Yeah,
good tree.
The only other one that really had so Country Court doesn't have any trees. Scottsview really doesn't have very many trees.
All right.
They has some trees, but they aren't growing
Right.
that far. Casey's is half trees, but it's mostly scrub trees in that woods back there.
Yeah.
We cleaned that out 5 years ago.
Should we look,
Tom Craft was alive, yeah.
should we look and see if we have any dead ash in that? Because, once they're dead, that is parkland, and if they get to the point where they fall, we have a safety issue.
Yeah, we could take a look at that and wander through there and see. We'll be there Wednesday night.
Right. It'll be a good time to take a look.
Wood ticks are a little thick in there right now.
Imagine. Do we have any thoughts or plans to replace any of the trees that we're taking out that we've lost?
At this point, we haven't added that into our pricing on any of this, so, I mean, we have to. Again, I think with. Right now, we're considering some other park improvements and
Right.
stuff. I think that could be part of it in the future if we decide we want to add some more back.
Yeah.
We have to take a look at what that inventory looks like and.
The dead trees in Creekwood Park. Most of that hill where the basketball court is on is gravel, so unless you go out and water them once a week, they're not gonna grow any of them. So we had a row of pine trees that the Girl Scouts planted in front of the basketball court that lasted 1 year, so with watering.
And. Okay. Any other questions, comments, or is somebody ready to make motions to approve these?
And one other comment might be to look for money. I think we saved some money, not hiring public works employee for the year. Can we move some of those funds over and cover them?
I think we're fine, Jay, with moving, keeping park funding in the park funding area.
We're good there.
Yeah.
All right. Then I'm ready to go.
Did you have
So,
something
yeah,
else, Dave?
just a quick question. So the way I'm understanding this is the Dakota Avenue and the Sewell Circle would come out of the right of way, which we have
Mhm.
enough funds for.
Yep.
So we'd still have almost $2,000 in there, and then we'd be taking 7,300 out of the 20 grand in the parks.
And do a couple $1,000s out of the right of way for the overhang trees,
Yeah, we'll
taking those
probably
down
end up,
on
we'll
Creekwood
probably
Lane.
end up using the whole right of way clearing. If we
Yeah.
do those Creekland ones too.
Do we want to try to authorize that now so that we can get synergy with the doing the
I
park?
think
Yes.
it's a good idea to just do it. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. If any,
So we're just letting them take whatever they want without any kind of.
I think we allow Eric to facilitate that. He knows where the budget lands, and
Okay.
if it ends up being something that's gonna get us out of whack in the budget, then I think we need to push pause for a moment.
Okay.
That would be my recommendation. That keeps it moving forward.
Mhm.
Who's gonna make the motion?
No problem, I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
You like that, how we put that right on you?
I got you, no hassle.
I'll second.
All right, so I've got a motion and a second to take care of the ash trees in the Creekwood Park using money moved to the park tree removal fund from what was budgeted for the park study. We've got 6,000 for Dakota and 1,000 for Sewell using the road right-of-way funding. And then we will do the Creekwood Road. Authorize Eric to work with the contractor on Creekwood Road, making sure that we don't get out of whack on the budget. Does that sound like the right motion?
That's it.
All right.
I think that's the one I seconded.
I think that is exactly what you seconded, right, Jay? So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. 7.3 update, consider proposal to change the compensation pay scale structure, Administrator Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. And I'll certainly defer to Councilmember Market as he brought this matter for you, so certainly interrupt me, Councilmember, if I'm too far down a path of whatever I thought I heard. Anyway, as Councilmember Market brought a proposed pay scale, which basically used a 40% range. In the thinking, and the council asked that we take a look at it from, that I take a look at it and just give some feedback, and I won't go through the entirety of my long drawn out memo, but in effect, what I would offer to you folks is, instead of having that 40% range or a 25% range, rather you just clarify your policy to instead aim towards a metro average. And that way you're trying to gauge what the market is for a given position. whether you have a range or a step program, the question becomes, where do you start that person? What is an ideal position? It really puts you back into that quandary of well, exactly where, and that really is, I thought, the crux of the matter in the first place. It's difficult to implement steps or ranges in this level of an organization. If you had certainly multiple staff, you had union groups, or you had a civil service process, or you had people that were comparing themselves with each other, then that step process or a range might be more effective. But you're not there quite yet. And maybe for good or for bad. Also, another thing I thought was valuable to include in this conversation is, and I think I've heard some of you say this, is to try to bring into any prospective wage amendment, presumably would be requiring a job performance review of some scale. Get that into your policy. Again, you're not trying to burden your staff to go through and rank people in some, universally defined sense, but rather somebody doing a decent job, somebody being a productive, positive employee. It's important you do that. If it's hard to define what the metric is, you're not selling widgets, you're not making widgets. It's a little bit fuzzy, but you want to make a good attempt at it, and there's forms to do that. And lastly, a pay scale or a pay range in a lot of ways is a snapshot in time. Those pay scales and pay ranges do need to move with inflation, whether we like it or not. So if you can get away from putting yourself in that burden of always having to provide that analysis, again, at this level of organization, might be better off just kind of to come with what's our market, and be close to that. So that was kind of where I came from it. And to implement something such as that in your packet, I gave you a red line of your Article 7 and your compensation policy that disconnects your responsibility to go through this schedule every year, but instead gave you folks discretion to identify and monitor city staff wages and salaries to ensure it reasonably reflects the market, and monitor staff through performance reviews that are practical, that enables retainers of good employees, and at the end of the day, at least gives a nod to internal equity. You're going to have that in the long term with pay equity requirements as the city matures and evolves. And so it's important to note that the concept that I think worked well was because you're never going to get a perfect average. It's hard to find that. So you're competing with a lot of cities in the metro area, probably largely South Metro, but still nevertheless. So again, not perfect. So a thought would be take 90% of that average. It gives you some flexibility downward. And then similarly, 80% if somebody's not, as a new person, doesn't have a deep set of experience. And every time you come to a hire, you're going to take a look at the landscape. You're going to take a look at the market and say, well, where should this person land? And so I thought that would be a more effective tool for everybody. It's really when you bring them on board is the best plan. So all that said, we'll talk about your city clerk position a little later, but we applied that to this and say, how would this approach work in the city clerk sense? And working with the mayor and council member Zanto, that we thought the 90% calculation that we showed was $89,934 off their list of 50 or so communities in the metro. So you take a 90% of that number, that brings it back down to about $80,900. And that's probably pretty close. So that's how we came to that conclusion. So in short, hopefully I did justice to what you were hoping to find, Councilmember Markert.
The steps are gone. I love it.
Okay. But it does put a burden on the council to think about how its employees work and do a good job implements a performance review, which is good and fair. And tries to set a market because you work in a market and that's the story. So if there's an ask, I would ask that you consider the amendments to Article 7 in your compensation of your policy, and those red lines are in your.
Okay, council members, questions, comments? I just real quick, I will just to follow up. When we did the, we were looking at, you know, Eric, Abe and I were looking at the clerk's, you know, pay. It was interesting. We did a little bit of homework on that and looked at the map, what, you know, communities made sense to have in there, which ones didn't. Abe did a great job of pulling that into a table and a map and, you know, kind of allowed us to work through there a little bit. But again, I think that formula worked out pretty well. And I think we came to, you know, an agreement that that number makes sense really quickly because of that. So, yeah, I think this would work well. So sorry, Bill, I think maybe you had some comments here.
Do we need to take out the table that's currently, was that part of our comp plan or?
So from what I can gather, the council, well, it's not in your official policy.
Okay, but then we don't have to, we don't have to
Just-
remove it. We
Nothing
just
to remove,
ignore it.
but
Yep.
the sentence to be removed references that table.
Okay, and that's what you're modifying.
Mhm.
Great.
So basically, we would just need to approve the amendments to the compensation.
Yep.
Article.
I think you should.
Any other, I'll make a motion, but is
Okay,
there any other
well,
questions?
See if there's any questions.
Yeah,
comments. Abe?
I'm all for it, right? We're back to pay performance based salary, and I think this puts a lot of flexibility in it. It doesn't define it, which gives us a lot of leeway, gives us the opportunity during budget season to be able to say, here's the number that we're gonna be looking at, and we can direct however we want. The one thing that I would like to suggest that we do with this is take a little deeper dive into what exactly is our competition
Yeah.
comparables, right?
Yeah,
When I was going through the data, you know, is it fair to say a comparable is the city of Minneapolis? No.
Right.
But is it comparable to say Lakeville is one? Well, yeah, because in my opinion, they're next door neighbors and that person is more than likely going to be traveling to one of these locations. Right, so I started thinking about, is it just strictly the size of the community? Cause I think that's kind of what we were doing. We were going along the west side and it's like, well, Victoria though, we're probably not competing necessarily with Victoria a lot for a person that's gonna be traveling that far unless they're mid. Could be, but what I was proposing is doing like a 10-mile radius and small communities within a 20-mile radius. So then we could say, okay, here's our comparable cities, and then we could kind of work through that and land and make sure that's appropriate.
Mhm.
And then in positions like the accounting tech, we might want to also say for certain positions, we also would look at the private sector, be able to say,
Yeah.
do we want to have a factor in there as well?
Yeah.
But I think it would be beneficial as we look at the employee that we're bringing in to be able to say, what is the calculation for the comparables
yeah,
and base?
Yep, I agree.
So,
that's probably something we can do when we open the job rec, right?
yeah,
Right.
You know, every time we open a job rec that's part of the analysis, right?
Yep.
Is, you know, do the average, get that out there, boom, we put our range in, and we should be relatively all agreeable to it at that
Yep.
point.
and I'd be happy to pass along to city administrator the spreadsheet that I created for some dialogue. Because I think we should say, could we have, here's our standard, and then we can deviate as we need to.
Yeah, the data changes, of course, naturally over time, but
Correct.
the
But at least
template
it's,
for the map
you
and
know,
everything should all land.
Is Lonsdale comparable or not? Right, I think
Right.
we could then say, okay, that is, or that isn't, right,
Mhm.
and then it wouldn't have to be this dialogue every time to say,
Yeah.
okay. Which cities are we gonna look at for comparables?
Right.
Yeah.
Cause I felt like that's what we were doing before.
That was really kind of where and even the discussion we had last week was that's where we landed. We were talking about, well, is this in?
Right.
Yep. Okay,
Sounds great.
any other comments, questions? So Bill, did I hear you making the?
I will make a
to
motion
Amend
to-
the,
To amend Article 7 compensation clause in our compensation policy.
okay, thank you, Bill. Second, anybody?
I'll second that.
Okay. So I've got a motion by Bill and a second by Abe to amend the Article 7 in the compensation a policy. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion passes.
Thank you, thank you, Eric.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
7.4, update to temporary finance director and assistants, Abdo, Eric.
Okay, thank you again, Mayor, Council. We brought forth last meeting on the 15th of July, the proposed agreement with Abdo about assuming the role, temporary role of a contracted finance director position. And Councilmember Market, if I recall correctly, asked that we just get some comparable pricing in terms of the hourly rates, and that information is in your packet. You know, Redpath is a well-known firm in the community. I think they're formerly used to be Todgers Redpath, so they do great work just like Abdo, and I would argue those are comparable rates. Who in each firm, terms of their hourly rate, would be actually doing why, you know, you don't really want to know some of that information. You just hope they're all bound by the same professional and ethical standards, and if you just have to trust them with that. So they're comparable, I would argue.
Got it. Thank you for doing that.
So with that, in the end of the day, I think, you know, we need to get moving forward. We're coming into budget here. Plus we really need to take a look at the CSTS subordinate service districts.
Yeah.
Budgets in that. I would recommend that we, you know, move on the contract with Abdo, since would be the easiest onboarding. They know our system and are used to work with us.
Are they ready to get
They're
ready to start?
They're ready to go. Yeah, we did have to, since we delayed, they did have to change the team out a little bit because some people got put on some other projects, but they have, you know, staff with them that are just as experienced as what they proposed the first time. So, yep, they're ready to go if we can approve this tonight.
Good.
I think we should.
Is that a motion?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second. Can I just add one thing before we vote?
Yep.
Can we push the CSTS analysis as either before the budget so we can take care of that? Because that's been sitting out there a long time, and the attorney's not here tonight, but we put it on hold because she wanted us to put it on hold, but it's just.
Yeah, I think with this agreement, because of the opportunity of the staff that will be assigned to this project, I think there will be opportunity to move down some simultaneous.
Okay.
So,
all right.
Yeah. Okay, so I've got a motion and a second to approve the agreement for interim finance director assistance with Abdo. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. 7.5, consider appointment to the position of city clerk. Eric.
One last thing, right?
Right.
Catch up the paperwork. Sorry. Okay, I apologize. On July 1st, 2024, the city council authorized us to post for a full-time city clerk position. We then posted that with application due, I believe, July 19th. We received 10 complete applications, 12 semi-complete applications, and about 20 or so applications that were sent through an online system. Nevertheless, the 12 that were complete or semi-complete were shared with the committee, which was Mayor Costick and Councilmember Zanto, myself, and City Planner Matt Holsworth. We ranked them independently based on what we felt would be the most responsible or breakdown of their duties, whether it be meeting minutes, running elections, social media, newsletters, certainly being the record bearer of this community. It's an important role, and a lot of times it's the face of your city hall. When people walk in, you want to see a smiling face, and they're working hard for you. So it's an important role. So we met, we all coalesced around 4 really good candidates, I would argue. And Mayor, council members certainly embellish or correct whatever I might say. But we interviewed four folks and all four brought to the table a good set of experience. Some have been city clerks or directly related roles to that. And I think all four of them would have done a fine job. Any one of the four would have done a fine job. But it was trying to make the committee that we met with find the best fit for this city and where it's gonna go in the next few years. Not 20 years, but and maybe that's a different tale, but where are we gonna be in the next few years? And what do we want this person to do? Ultimately, the committee coalesced around Amy Jones. And I sent out her information about her background and her resume. And we felt that that was the best person to fit. And so the recommendation is that the council appoint Amy as the city clerk and suggested actions in the packet, but I would think that, I don't know, Mayor or council member, if you wanted to add or.
Yeah, echo the statement that in the end, we interviewed four really great candidates. All had some municipal experience of some sort, all related to around a clerk again, some more directly than others and it was a really hard decision. It would have taken us 3 days and three calls to really dial into the final candidate here. And I think we're very fortunate with the applicants that we got and again, I would echo what Eric said that all four of these ones that we interviewed could do the job. And I think we ended up with probably the best candidate for Credit River. Anything else? to add?
Yeah, I agree. I think they would have all done great. I think Amy brings a level of detail orientedness, willingness to engage and have conversations with our residents, being able to be very approachable. I think she'll be a great face to the city.
Mhm,
So
absolutely.
2 week notice, so she can start September 1st.
Did you ask her on her start date?
So my conversation with her was the requirement is 2 weeks notice. I think so short answer is I think, yes, that would be the best, at least from a payroll standpoint, start on the 1st of the month, but we have Labor Day is the 2nd. So it's a tough thing. And then we want her to get to the training at the league. So how do we just schedule that? But yeah, right.
It's not like 3 months from.
Oh,
No.
no.
Great.
Yeah, I think it'd be good. She's a background in design, graphic
she does that
design
stuff?
and stuff like that. Yeah, I think this would be really good. Should be a good opportunity for us.
Not to interject, so I suppose if the action you consider is appoint Amy Jones, subject to
Background check.
any onboarding and background check we would need.
Yep. Okay. Somebody want to make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Amy.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Leroy. All right. So I've got a motion and a second to appoint Amy Jones as the clerk for City of Credit River, contingent on background check and onboarding tasks and starting as soon as possible. So if we can, right? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Eric, I just noticed that we have approval of claims on here. Did you see that note that Donna had sent earlier today? Do you have a key to your office in your pocket by chance?
Her office?
It's the same key as your office.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well,
otherwise
to tell them where the checks and the stamp.
Yes, I do. So what, I apologize
I
for
think
not
there's
knowing,
specs on our desk.
I apologize for not knowing the sequence, but if that's just simple, yeah, I can go into the ground.
Can you go grab them?
Oh, yeah,
while we're-
absolutely.
So while we're doing that, let's move on to staff member and council member updates. I just have a couple things. Well, we'll let it go down the table. Abe, do you have anything?
Yeah, a little update on our building, our government center advisory committee. So Jay and I are planning on having that conversation this week, today, maybe. So I'd love to say next meeting, we could have those proposed individuals for the council review.
Okay. Perfect.
One thing I'd like to bring up, we had a tree down. Went down Sunday. On Judicial Road. And we need to contact Frontier to clean up their.
The right of way.
Their right of way, it's terrible. And the other thing is, we have a lot of ash trees in people's yards. And we need to take a look at a policy. That if these trees. Accidentally get cut down in their yard, lay on our road, then they expect us. To open the road and remove them. So I'd like to look at a policy that. If it's not in our right of way, we're not paying for it, so. We used to use common sense, but that's out the window now, so.
I would think our ordinances cover that today, that we're not liable for a tree that's not in our right of way. Right?
Peter, do you have some clarification on that? If a tree from a private property falls in our road and blocks
No
the
one
road.
hears it. Yeah.
And no one hears it didn't happen,
Yeah,
right?
it
Because
didn't fall.
these all happened, the last several have happened in the middle of the night.
It's that horizontal lightning thing called the chainsaw.
Yeah, right. Register real quick
Very, yeah, good cut.
and then just pass that, just pass the top one down. so
Yeah.
everybody can take a quick look at it.
Your Honor, council members, without pulling up the code in front of me right now, I can just tell you as a general principle. Private trees would be the responsibility of the private owners. They would be committing an act of nuisance to allow that tree to be in our right of way. On the one hand, on the other hand, we have a duty with the public to make sure we keep the right of way free. So those are often in tension in a situation like this.
Are we allowed to take care of the situation and then bill them after the fact?
We can take care of the situation, bill him after the fact. I'd like to defer answering that question until I look at what you actually have in your ordinance.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, let's, why don't we,
one time we did take care of it and they refused to pay it. And they paid it in their property taxes, so.
yeah. Well, let's, I guess if with councils, if nobody objects to have Peter do a quick research on that. And
Yeah,
bring something back.
absolutely.
Yeah.
No objection.
Yeah,
Nope.
the 25-cent review.
Awesome. That was all I have. And for the Frontier thing, could we send a letter, on Judicial Road, tree fell on Frontier's lines. And they need to clean that whole side up. They've neglected it for years. And if that's something we could bill them for, if we go out and have to clean this up again.
Yeah,
Because it wasn't in our right of way, it was beyond.
so it's not on private property, but because they have an easement for communication utilities to their overhang.
We can look at the map tomorrow, you can kind of tell me
Yeah.
where you're thinking.
I'll show you.
Mhm.
And it goes back to the city attorney's comment about, where does responsibility lie relative to nuisance or condition?
It's also transfer.
Yeah, let's take a look.
goes with it too.
But the previous company kept it clean, and since Frontier's taken over, it's.
No, I feel you, Frontier.
Check register real quick.
Internet, like,
Yeah,
okay, I got you, yeah. They have a deep in the weeds, I call it.
Yep, yep, that's all right, we're tap dancing while everybody reviews the check.
Take a look at that.
Tara. So, all right. Again, a couple updates, I got 4 of them, so just a reminder, Night to Unite tomorrow night. I think there's 9 or 10 parties in Credit River this year, so every year more add on, which is great. Eric and I will begin our journey probably 5:30, and our goal is to hit all of them.
Is there a list somewhere?
Actually, I think there is. I think I saw a map. I can forward.
Is it,
Could
could you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
did you send it out though?
Sure.
Okay.
Wednesday night, we got the last park meeting for the year in Casey's edition, 6:30. 6:30.
yeah,
Mhm.
And then Saturday is the public safety day in Cleary Park, so if anybody's interested, the 3rd year of that. It'll be, it was actually, last year was really cool, they had the line of helicopter there, the helicopter there. Ambulances there, fire trucks there, the sheriffs had their drone there, horses. Pretty cool, it's a great event for kids. Actually, one thing I saw on the flyer this year, for anybody that's got young kids, they have some way to practice dialing 911 and teach the kids how to do that. So if you got young kids that have never done that before, I don't know what that involves, but they'll have that was on the flyer, so. Well, I think that's 11:30 to 2 o'clock on Saturday at Cleary Park. And then the only last thing, Jay and I back this last week attended Prior Lake Fire Department budget meeting. I think relatively flat for next year, it looks like, and they were within $1,000 of their budget for last year, so. And headed in good position for this year.
Cool. Yeah, and then it looked like purchased the truck. Moved a year out.
Yeah, so they 2020. Looks like 2027 or
Yeah.
I think it's 27. I think it's July of 27. The new ladder truck will be complete by then, but that would be the next time that we probably see an increase in costs on that. Will be that replacement of that truck, so.
2027, you said?
Yes, now, they are selling, one of the things that it's gonna affect, the reason why the next year's budget is so favorable is they're selling a truck that they no longer use.
They're giving us part of that.
So because of the way the contract works, all expenses are included. When there's a credit, the credit is shared amongst everybody as well, so.
We'll take it.
Yeah, so it actually, it's a pretty good,
It's a couple $100,000.
couple $100,000 that they're selling this truck for.
So we, the
So
same percentage.
60 grand, 30%.
No, that's between this.
Yeah, it's 120 between us and Spring Lake, and ours is more, so,
Yeah, what, 18%?
something like that, yeah,
Total.
yep. But that, anyways, that'll help it'd be flat for next year, so,
Great.
yeah. Other than that, that's what I've got. Jay, anything?
Talk about the committee today. You wanna?
Yeah.
You wanna talk about the committee meeting this morning?
No,
Okay. That's fine.
that would be a closed session with our attorney.
Very good.
And all I have to add, Mr. Mayor, is we're working on the vision statement committee.
I think we'll
Makeup
have
of it and the
our
process
recommendations ready
at
for
the
next
next meeting as
as
well.
well.
Yep.
Yep. All right. With that, let's go back and approve the listings of claims. Anybody have any questions on them? Otherwise, I
No.
take a motion to approve.
I do have one question. Do we know, looking back at the Terra agreement, do we have I haven't seen the
I
invoice
haven't
on
seen
there.
any billing on it, so I don't know where they're at, but just this 8,000 that's on there. So I mean. are we-
$8,000 bill for
Yeah, I
Terra,
mean, are
which
they,
was.
we don't know where they're at as far as.
What's it
a
related to?
percentage of.
That's the construction management company that did the need space analysis, and I just don't remember what the contract was, so I would be interested in.
Not paying them?
Well,
Well,
no,
I just don't remember what the contract was, and I
Right.
just didn't have time to see.
I
it
don't wanna
before.
make,
Well-
making a full payment on pre-construction services without knowing how much has been billed on it, or, you know, there's
Okay,
no description on it that
So-
really tells us where they're at.
so I guess then we have two choices. Either we can approve it and go back and find out what it is after the fact and request that they credit us back if there's a misbilling, or you can
Let's hold.
approve the rest of them. And
Is the invoice in there? Can
Yeah,
we
maybe it
take a
shows
look
on
at that? I just,
Yeah.
What,
it's the third from the last.
1, 2, 3, 2, 5.
there you can look.
that last page.
That could be
Yeah,
for the
so-
Christmas party.
It's-
It's a straight
There's no-
invoice.
no
doesn't give us
detail.
any
Here, pay us
additional-
73.
You know, I think. I think we should probably
Let's just
look it
pull it.
up and see. See where they, it's first, it looks like first billing. I'm gonna guess it's first billing. But how much of that?
Well, the invoice date was
I thought we
just
paid
June.
them
We got, you know,
No, I
what,
get-
let's just pull that one, cause,
No, no.
Mhm.
the invoice is on June 30th, so. Let's just
Yeah.
pull that
Yeah.
one and that one, if we approve that on the second meeting this month,
Let's do
we'll
that.
still be within,
Would
paying
you be
within
able to
30
find
days.
it?
Sure, fine, I can talk to them or find a
Yeah.
contract, sure.
Yeah, how
absolutely.
much, what a percentage of of that phase of their.
Right. So. Check that one off there that we're not approving that one.
Is this the contract?
Sign that.
Hang on. Oh, all right.
Just an
So then I will entertain a motion then to approve the
They didn't
claims
do any of
listed
that?
minus.
No. they
The
didn't-
Terra
yeah, they didn't know how
payment.
much was
Oh.
over there.
I'll make that
Oh.
motion.
Thank you, Abe.
Okay.
Leroy, you making the second?
I'll second.
Thank you.
Thanks for reminding me.
So I got a motion and a second to approve the listing of claims minus the Terra Construction. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Then in one, I need a transfer request then, so to pay claims tonight, I need a transfer from savings to checking of $100,000.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Leroy.
Second.
Thank you, Abe. Motion is second to approve transfer from savings to checking. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion passes 3 with 2 abstaining.
Aye. So we're looking at the Terra contract.
All right, Abe, let's adjourn before we get. into
Yes, I'll make that motion to adjourn, please.
I'll second it.
All right,
They're busy talking.
I've got a motion, a second to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody